My father sold me to a 49-year-old man for a bride price. When I was 13, negotiating my value like livestock while I listened through the wall. When I begged him to stop, he dragged me before my grandfather, who said, "Layla has always been jealous of pure girls who can attract good husbands." I stayed silent. That was 6 months ago. Yesterday, he sat alone because he realized it was over. I was 13 when my cousin Layla showed up at our family reunion after being gone for 5 years. The moment she stepped through the gate, conversations died. "Look who decided to crawl back," someone muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. At dinner, Layla sat alone at the kitchen counter while the rest of us ate in the dining room. When I got up to bring her some bread, my older sister yanked my arm so hard it hurt. "Stay away from that one. She destroyed a good man's life with her lies." Over the following months, I observed how Layla lived like a ghost in our home. The aunties who used to praise young women for being helpful now acted like Layla's cooking would poison them. They made her taste every dish first, sneering while she did. My mother would check Layla's chores 3 times, always finding invisible dirt to complain about. But through all this, I noticed strange things about Layla. She'd slip folded papers into teenage girls' pockets during meal service. She left books about women's health in the bathroom. She memorized which days each young cousin visited, and always had tampons ready in her apron. Then came the afternoon that changed everything. I'd just gotten my period for the first time. My mother found the blood on my sheets and started crying, but they were tears of joy. Finally, the blessing has come. She called my aunts, who rushed over with sweets and flowers. "A woman's blood is sacred," my grandmother explained, kissing my forehead. "It means Allah has made you ready for your purpose, to bear children." She held my face in her wrinkled hands. "Our family has kept this tradition for 400 years. We marry our daughters within the moon cycle of their first blood to keep them pure, to ensure strong bloodlines." Suddenly, it all made sense. You see, up until this point, all of my cousins had disappeared at teenagehood. My parents had always told me they were going back to the motherland for high school, but now I knew the truth. Within hours, my father was on the phone. Yes, she has become a woman today. 13, yes, healthy and untouched. I heard him negotiating my bride price like I was livestock at the market. I was in the bathroom crying when someone knocked softly. It was Layla. She pressed something into my palm, a cell phone with numbers already saved. "Listen carefully," she said, checking the door. "Tomorrow at school, go to Mrs. Ahmed. Say these exact words. I am being forced to marry a man who is 49 years old. I am 15. She has to report it by law." Before I could respond, she was gone. My father found the phone that night. He dragged me and Layla before my grandfather, the family patriarch. "This snake is filling our daughter's head with poison," he raged, but grandfather barely glanced at us. "Layla has always been jealous of pure girls who can attract good husbands." He turned to Layla with cold eyes. "You should have been grateful to be chosen so young. Now look at you, 23, and no man will touch you. Your wedding," he pointed at me, "happens this weekend instead." I avoided Layla for days, terrified of making things worse. But one night, while I was locked in my room with no phone, the house exploded. I pressed my ear to the door to find out what was going on. Turns out, someone had found Layla in the tool shed at dawn, teaching my younger cousins phrases in English. "Help me, I'm being forced to marry. I am 13 years old." The adults had dragged her out by her hair while she screamed at the girls to remember the words. By noon, they'd shaved her head completely and locked her in the storage building. "Her husband's family is coming for her tomorrow," my aunt announced. Finally, justice. 2 nights before my wedding, I snuck to the storage building when they forgot to lock my door. I found Layla curled in the corner, her scalp raw and bleeding. She wasn't crying anymore, just staring at nothing. I sat beside her and held her hand. After hours of silence, she whispered, "You have the right to know who you're marrying." Her voice was hollow. "Ask anyone except family about Mr. Rashid's first 2 wives. Ask how old they were when they died." I stayed quiet, just squeezing her fingers. "I should have died too," she continued. "It would have been better than this." That's when I finally asked, "Is Mr. Rashid the good man you supposedly seduced?" She looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time. "I was 12, she said. "He was 43. I was his 3rd wife." My heart dropped. I gripped her burned hands tighter, feeling the rough scabs against my palms. The storage building smelled like motor oil and dust, and somewhere outside a dog barked. Footsteps crunched on gravel, getting closer. My whole body tensed. The door creaked open. It was Amara, my youngest cousin. She was only 11, clutching a water bottle against her chest. Her eyes were huge in the darkness. She slipped inside and shut the door behind her, hands shaking as she unscrewed the cap. Layla grabbed the water and drank deeply while Amara stared at us both. The poor kid was trembling like a leaf. She kept glancing at the door, then back at Layla's shaved head. Layla pushed the bottle toward me, but I shook my head. She needed it more. That's when she grabbed my shoulders, her fingers digging in hard. Her eyes burned into mine as she begged me to leave right now, to run while everyone was asleep, but I couldn't move. I needed to know how to stop this wedding, how to save myself from becoming another one of Mr. Rashid's dead wives. Amara made a small whimpering sound. She'd been listening through the thin walls of the house, heard everything about the wedding, about Mr. Rashid. The kid looked ready to bolt. Layla's grip tightened. She leaned close, her breath hot against my ear. "Mr. Rashid had preferences," she explained. "He would insist on examining me privately before the ceremony, to ensure purity, he'd say. The family would allow it because tradition demanded the groom's satisfaction." Her whole body shook as she spoke. My stomach churned. I thought I might throw up right there on the concrete floor. Amara pressed herself against the wall, eyes darting between us. Then we heard it. Uncle's voice, calling for someone outside. All 3 of us froze. Amara dove behind a pile of old furniture covered in tarps. I could see her shoes sticking out, but there was no time to fix it. Layla shoved me toward the door, hissing at me to go before we were all caught. I stumbled out into the night air, my legs barely working. Behind me, I heard Uncle's footsteps getting closer to the storage building. I forced myself to walk normally, to breathe, to not look back. My room felt like a tomb when I got back. The lock clicked behind me, sealing me in. I sat at my desk and grabbed my homework, my hands moving on autopilot. On the back of my math worksheet, I wrote everything. Sarah would see it tomorrow at school. She'd tell someone. She had to. But morning came too fast, and Mother appeared in my doorway before dawn. "No school today," she announced. Wedding preparations required my presence. My stomach dropped as she pulled me from bed. She brought measuring tape and fabric samples. While she wrapped the tape around my waist, my hips, my chest, she hummed wedding songs. Her hands moved efficiently, writing down numbers in her little notebook. Then she started searching my room, under the mattress, in my drawers, behind my books, looking for phones, notes, anything I might use to communicate with the outside world. She found my homework. Her face went pale as she read my desperate plea for help. Without a word, she left and returned with my aunt. From now on, Aunt would sleep in my room. No more privacy, no more chances. Through the thin bedroom wall that night, I heard Father on the phone. Mr. Rashid's name came up repeatedly. They were discussing money, arguing about amounts. Then I heard the words that made my blood freeze. Proven fertility. My first period had increased my bride price. Hours passed. Aunt snored in the bed across from mine. Then, soft as a whisper, Amara's voice drifted through the heating vent. When Aunt had gone to the bathroom earlier, Amara had memorized the shelter number from Layla's teachings. She promised to call from school tomorrow. Her voice was so small, so determined. I pressed my face against the vent and whispered back my thanks. Then silence. Morning brought grandmother to my room, her arms full of jewelry boxes. She laid them out on my bed with reverence. Gold chains, heavy bangles, elaborate earrings. As she held up each piece, explaining its history, I recognized them. These were the same pieces Layla wore in her wedding photos. The ones from when she was 12. Grandmother fastened a necklace around my throat. It felt like a collar. She kissed my forehead and told me how beautiful I'd look for Mr. Rashid, how pleased he'd be with his new bride. Downstairs, I heard a car arrive. Male voices in the front room. Mr. Rashid had come early. The aunts descended on me like vultures. They stripped me down and forced me into the ceremonial bath, scrubbing my skin raw with rough cloths. The water was too hot, scented with rose oil that made me gag. They washed my hair 3 times, murmuring prayers over my body. I could hear him downstairs, his laugh, deep and confident. Grandmother appeared in the bathroom doorway. Mr. Rashid was waiting in grandfather's study. He needed to speak with me about the marriage contract, to ensure we understood each other. The aunts dressed me in a simple white dress. Nothing fancy yet, just pure and clean. They marched me downstairs like a prisoner to execution. The study door was heavy wood. Grandmother knocked twice, then pushed me inside. Mr. Rashid sat in grandfather's chair like he owned it. He was exactly as Layla had described. 49 years old with gray at his temples and hands that looked too soft. He smiled when he saw me, showing too many teeth. Grandmother hovered by the door as he stood and approached. He asked permission to check my pulse for health reasons. His fingers wrapped around my wrist, pressing against the veins. He counted under his breath, then nodded with satisfaction. He started talking about his previous wives, how fragile they'd been. Weak constitutions, he called it. The first one had lasted 2 years. The second, barely one. He hoped I would be stronger. A scream pierced the air outside. Layla's scream. I jerked toward the window and saw them. Layla's relatives had arrived at dawn as threatened. They were dragging her toward a car, her feet scraping against the ground as she fought. Her uncle had her by the arms while her aunt pulled her hair. I lunged for the door, but Mr. Rashid moved faster. His body blocked the exit, solid as a wall. His smile never wavered. He leaned close, close enough that I could smell his cologne. If I behaved, he whispered, he'd be gentler with me than he'd been with Layla. She had fought too much, made things difficult. But I seemed smarter. Grandmother shifted uncomfortably by the door. Even she looked unsettled by his words. Another commotion erupted in the house. Aunt's voice, shrill with panic. Amara was missing from Quran study. The other girls said she'd left for the bathroom and never returned. The house exploded into chaos. Adults ran through rooms calling Amara's name. Mr. Rashid stepped aside to let grandmother rush out, but his eyes never left me. We stood there in the study, listening to the panic outside. 20 minutes later, the phone rang. The school administrator, calling about Amara. She'd shown up at the office telling wild stories about forced marriages in our family. The administrator assured grandfather it was being handled as a family matter. She was sending Amara home immediately. When Amara arrived, grandfather's rage shook the walls. He ordered all young girls locked in their rooms immediately. No exceptions. No bathroom breaks without supervision. Through the study door, cracked slightly open, I caught fragments of conversation. Mr. Rashid was telling father about Layla, how she'd spread lies years ago about their marriage, how he'd handled the situation, how grateful the family should be that he was willing to take another daughter after such betrayal. A knock at the front door interrupted. Sarah's mother stood on the porch, still in her nursing scrubs. Sarah had noticed my absence from school and worried something was wrong. She insisted on seeing me. The family tried to refuse, but she pushed harder. Maybe I was sick. Maybe I was pregnant from some secret boyfriend. The accusation made grandfather's face purple with rage. To protect family honor, he agreed to let her take me for a medical exam. In her car, Sarah's mother gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles. Sarah had told her everything she knew, but a clinic visit was all she could offer. She had her own family to protect. The clinic's waiting room smelled like disinfectant and fear. Sarah's mother filled out paperwork while I sat rigid in the plastic chair, watching other patients avoid eye contact. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The bruises on my arms from where father had gripped me were starting to purple. A nurse called my name. Sarah's mother stood with me, her hand gentle on my shoulder as we walked down the sterile hallway. In the examination room, I begged the nurse to document the marks on my body, the fingerprints on my upper arms, the raw skin on my wrists from being held down, evidence of what my family was doing to me. The nurse's face remained professionally neutral as she took photographs. She explained that documentation meant nothing without my willingness to testify. Without that, I'd be sent right back to them. The system protected families, not children. A young male nurse entered to assist with vitals. He froze when he heard my name. His eyes widened with recognition. He knew the Rashid family name. His sister had been Mr. Rashid's first wife. While the female nurse stepped out for supplies, he leaned close and whispered rapidly. His sister died at 15. The family claimed pregnancy complications, but he'd seen her body before burial. The bruises, the internal damage. He scribbled his phone number on a tissue and pressed it into my palm. Sarah's mother had to return me home. She had her own job to protect, her own children to feed. The drive back felt like traveling to my own funeral. She squeezed my hand before I got out, her eyes full of helpless sympathy. The house was in chaos when I returned. Grandfather had summoned the family doctor to verify my purity for Mr. Rashid's requirements. The examination would happen immediately, before any outside influence could corrupt me further. Female relatives surrounded me in my bedroom. They held my arms and legs while I thrashed and screamed. I remembered Layla's English phrases and shouted them over and over. The words echoed off the walls as the doctor completed his shameful task. That night, locked in my room with Aunt snoring across from me, I heard whispers through the heating vent. Amara's voice, teaching the shelter number to our younger cousins. The girls were memorizing it, passing it between their rooms through the connected air ducts. A network of children's voices in the darkness, preparing for something. Morning arrived with Mr. Rashid at our door again. He claimed he needed to calm his bride before the ceremony, to ensure I understood my duties. Grandfather hesitated, but father insisted traditions must be maintained. The wedding would proceed tomorrow as planned. Even grandmother seemed uncomfortable with Mr. Rashid's eagerness. She lingered in the hallway as they led me to the study again. Her weathered hands twisted her prayer beads faster than usual. Alone with him again, Mr. Rashid described exactly how Layla had fought him years ago, the methods he'd used to break her spirit, the punishments that awaited wives who resisted. His soft hands gestured casually as he detailed horrors that made my skin crawl. I scratched the shelter number into my forearm with the edge of the metal bed frame that night. The pain helped me focus. If they called me, at least someone might see the number, might understand what happened. Through the vents, Amara's network of cousins whispered escape phrases in English, young voices practicing words that might save them. The sound drifted through the walls while adults prepared wedding feasts downstairs. A package arrived for me the next morning. Mr. Rashid had sent a gold bracelet. Engraved on it were 2 names, his dead wives. A space waited for mine to be added. Mother found me trying to break my bedroom window with the jewelry box. She called me ungrateful, selfish, destroying our family's honor. Sarah arrived with her mother that afternoon, supposedly to help with wedding preparations. Hidden in her mother's purse was a burner phone. The male nurse from the clinic had contacted them. His mother wanted to meet me. She had information about her daughter's death. Aunt caught me with the phone, but Sarah's mother quickly claimed it was hers. She'd dropped it while adjusting my wedding dress. Aunt's suspicion was interrupted by commotion downstairs. Amara had convinced the guard aunt to let the younger cousins use the bathroom together. Now they'd barricaded themselves inside, refusing to come out. While adults pounded on the bathroom door, I managed to call the male nurse. His mother would come to the wedding. She had evidence she'd been saving for years. Photos of her daughter's body before burial. Proof of what Mr. Rashid did to young wives. The bathroom rebellion ended with grandfather beating Amara in the courtyard. Her screams carried through the house. Each cry strengthened my resolve. If this was what happened for locking a door, what would he do to a wife who refused her husband? Mr. Rashid arrived to help restore order. He volunteered to discipline the younger girls, teach them proper respect. His enthusiasm for the task made several aunts exchange worried glances. For the first time, doubt crept across their faces. Sarah's mother treated Amara's injuries in the kitchen. She made sure the other women saw the welts on the child's back, the bruises shaped like grandfather's hands. Some aunts turned away, others stared, something shifting in their expressions. A younger uncle suggested postponing the wedding. Too much chaos, too many disruptions. But grandfather's pride wouldn't allow it. The contracts were signed, the bride price paid, family honor demanded completion. Mr. Rashid insisted on speaking with me privately to calm the situation. The family reluctantly agreed. In the study once more, he described in detail how Layla had fought him on their wedding night, how he'd had to teach her submission, how much easier things would be if I simply accepted my fate. My visible terror caught the attention of my teenage cousin Fatima. She'd been helping serve tea and saw my face through the doorway. Something in my expression made her question what she was witnessing. She'd grown up with the same stories about marriage and duty, but seeing my fear made her doubt. Fatima texted her boyfriend about what was happening. He shared the information with his family. They knew Mr. Rashid by reputation. Within hours, 3 neighborhood women appeared at our door. Their daughters had been approached by Mr. Rashid at the market. He'd made offers to their families too. Grandfather dismissed the women as jealous gossips, but 2 aunts listened from the kitchen doorway. The stories were too similar, too specific. Mr. Rashid's pattern was becoming undeniable to those willing to see it. Mr. Rashid's anger at the women's accusations revealed more of his nature. He called them liars, threatened their families' reputations, but his rage only confirmed their stories. More relatives began to notice the mask slipping. The male nurse's mother arrived as promised. She carried a worn envelope close to her chest. Inside were photos of her daughter's bruised body before the rushed burial. She confronted Mr. Rashid directly in front of everyone. Her daughter had been 15 when she died. 15 and pregnant with injuries no child should suffer. Grandmother saw the photos. She recognized the jewelry in them. The same pieces Mr. Rashid had reclaimed after the death. The same pieces now sitting in my room, waiting to adorn another child bride. Her face went gray. 2 aunts declared they would not participate in the wedding. They could not be part of sending another girl to such a fate. The family began fracturing along lines of conscience and tradition. Mr. Rashid threatened to ruin the family's reputation if the wedding didn't proceed. He knew their secrets, their business dealings. He had connections that could destroy them socially and financially. Father wavered. The bride price had already been spent on debts. They couldn't return money they no longer had. My teenage male cousin stepped forward with an envelope. His savings from 3 years of work. Enough to cover the bride price if the wedding stopped. He placed it on the table between father and Mr. Rashid. Fatima revealed she'd been recording Mr. Rashid's threats on her phone. She'd hidden in the hallway during his morning visit, captured his violent promises. The recording spread among the female relatives like wildfire. His words, his specific horrible promises, shocked even the most traditional women. Uncle suggested a compromise. Delay the wedding until I turned 16. Give everyone time to calm down. Restore family harmony. But Mr. Rashid exploded at the suggestion. He grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks, shaking me as he demanded his rights. Grandfather finally saw what he'd been enabling, but pride prevented him from admitting his mistake. Instead, grandmother stepped forward. She declared the wedding postponed for family harmony. Her word, as the eldest woman, carried weight even grandfather couldn't dismiss. Mr. Rashid stormed out, threatening legal action for breach of contract. The relief felt premature. Men like him didn't give up easily. Sarah's mother used the chaos to connect me with an underground network. Women who helped child brides escape. They could move me tomorrow morning during the men's prayer time. I memorized the plan, hope blooming in my chest for the first time in days. During dinner, a sympathetic aunt knocked over an oil lamp. The small fire created perfect chaos. Family members rushed for water, abandoned their posts. I ran to retrieve the paper where I'd copied shelter numbers from Layla's whispered recitation, evidence I'd need for the journey ahead. But Fatima deleted the recording under pressure from her father. He threatened to cancel her own education if she didn't comply. The evidence vanished with a single touch. Mr. Rashid returned that evening with official-looking documents, medical forms declaring me mentally unstable, signed by a doctor none of us recognized. He demanded immediate marriage to protect me from myself, to save the family from the shame of having an unstable daughter. Grandfather sided with Mr. Rashid. Family honor trumped everything else. The wedding would happen tonight. No more delays. No more disruptions. Female relatives who had protested found themselves locked in their rooms. The resistance crumbled under patriarchal authority. I stood alone in a white wedding dress while Mr. Rashid waited in the main room with witnesses. 3 taps on the heating vent. Our established signal. Amara needed me now or never. Despite her own injuries, she'd learned to pick locks from Layla's teachings. The door clicked open. We crept through darkened hallways toward the garden exit. Freedom was just steps away when we found Mr. Rashid blocking the path. He'd anticipated this. His brothers stood guard at every exit. The trap was complete. But then car headlights flooded the courtyard. The male nurse had arrived with police officers. Sarah's mother had called them during the fire chaos, reported a medical emergency requiring immediate intervention. As a healthcare provider, the nurse insisted I was his patient in crisis. Grandfather tried to refuse entry, but the nurse pushed forward with official documentation. I stood at a crossroads. Stay silent and return to the wedding, or speak the truth in front of my entire family. I pulled up my sleeve. The bruises from Mr. Rashid's grip were purple-black against my skin. Below them, the shelter number I'd carved stood out in raised red welts. Self-harm as evidence. Desperation made visible. The sympathetic aunts who'd been locked away began pounding on their doors. Their muffled shouts grew louder. Other cousins joined them. The locked doors began to rattle in their frames. Someone, I never learned who, began unlocking the doors. Girls surged out, surrounding me in a protective circle. My young cousins, some barely older than 7, stood between me and the adults. They chanted Layla's English phrases in unison. Their small voices filled the courtyard. Mr. Rashid made his final mistake. He grabbed Amara as leverage, lifting the injured child by her bruised arm. Her cry of pain changed everything. Grandmother's cane struck his knee with surprising force. She stood between him and Amara, fury replacing her usual calm. Even she had limits. Hurting the babies crossed them. The dam broke. Female relatives surged forward, years of suppressed rage finally finding outlet. They came at Mr. Rashid with whatever they could grab. Kitchen spoons, brooms, their bare hands. He fled toward his car as women who'd spent lifetimes being silent found their voices in screams of fury. His brothers abandoned their posts, running after him. They'd expected to guard against a single girl's escape, not face the wrath of an entire household of women. Grandfather's authority crumbled as even his wife turned against him. She stood with the other women, her cane raised like a sword. The patriarchy that had ruled our family for generations fell apart in minutes. Sarah's mother guided me and the other girls toward a waiting van. The underground network had sent multiple vehicles, understanding that one girl's escape might become many. As we climbed inside, I looked back to see aunts building a bonfire in the courtyard. They threw my wedding dress onto the flames first, then the contracts, the jewelry, every symbol of the transaction that would have sold me to a predator. The fire reached toward the night sky, visible for blocks. More girls climbed into the vans, cousins who'd heard Amara's whispered lessons through the vents, sisters who'd seen what happened to the brides before them. We held each other as the vehicles pulled away, leaving behind the only world we'd known. Through the back window, I watched the fire grow. Aunts fed it with years of accumulated wedding preparations, dresses saved for daughters, contracts signed for sisters. The flames consumed it all while grandmother stood guard, ensuring no man interfered. We drove through empty streets toward safe houses and new beginnings. Amara curled against my side, her breathing finally steady. The other girls whispered among themselves, mixing English phrases with our mother tongue, planning futures that didn't include child marriage. My phone, hidden by Sarah's mother during the chaos, buzzed with a message. The male nurse had connected me with a lawyer, pro bono work for cases like mine. There would be testimony needed, evidence to present, a long fight ahead. But for now, we were free. The van carried us away from arranged marriages and stolen childhoods. Behind us, the fire still burned, a beacon of rebellion in a neighborhood that would never be quite the same. I thought of Layla, wherever her relatives had taken her. Her lessons had saved us. Her sacrifice had planted seeds of resistance that bloomed in unexpected ways. 7 girls escaped that night because one woman refused to let us disappear in silence. The safe house coordinator met us with blankets and hot tea. She'd seen this before. Groups of girls fleeing together when one brave soul finally said no. She assigned us rooms, explained the rules, promised that here we could just be children. That night, lying in a bed I'd chosen in a room I could lock from the inside, I traced the scars on my arm. The shelter number had served its purpose. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and statements, medical exams, and difficult questions. There would be pressure to return, threats against those who helped us, a long legal battle ahead. But tonight, I was 13 years old and free. Around me, other girls slept peacefully for the first time in months. We'd learned that freedom required not just escape, but the courage to fight for others still trapped. Our scars would become battle marks in a war we were now determined to win. The story of our escape would spread through whispered networks. Other girls would hear that 7 of us got out, that the aunts finally fought back, that even grandmother chose children over tradition. They would know that escape was possible, that they weren't alone, that somewhere, girls who understood were working to end this practice. I closed my eyes and made a promise to myself and to Layla. I would become a lawyer. I would fight child marriage with laws instead of kitchen spoons. I would make sure no more girls disappeared into arranged marriages, their childhoods sold for bride prices and family honor. The safe house smelled like cinnamon tea and old carpet. 6 months had passed since that night of fire and fury. I sat in the courthouse waiting room, my hands steady now as I reviewed my testimony notes. The male nurse's lawyer had prepared me well. Today, I would speak truth to power. Mr. Rashid entered the courtroom in handcuffs. His expensive suit couldn't hide the defeat in his shoulders. The charges were serious. Evidence from his first wife's death had finally surfaced. Her brother, the male nurse, had kept photographs and medical records all these years. Combined with my testimony and documentation from the clinic visit, prosecutors had built their case. I took the stand and described everything: the forced engagement, the threats, the examination demands. My voice stayed level as I showed the judge the faded scars on my arm where I'd carved the shelter number. Evidence of desperation that couldn't be denied. Sarah's mother testified next. She'd documented my bruises at the clinic, taken photographs that now served as evidence. Her professional medical opinion carried weight the defense couldn't challenge. She described finding me terrified, marked by violence, begging for help. The judge called a recess. In the hallway, I saw grandmother sitting on a bench. She'd come to testify for the prosecution. Her cane rested against her knee as she stared at nothing. When our eyes met, she nodded once, a silent acknowledgement of what needed to be done. Her testimony devastated the defense. She confirmed Mr. Rashid's pattern with young brides. She'd seen the jewelry he reclaimed from dead wives. She knew about the examination demands, the control tactics. Her words carried the weight of tradition turned against itself. During lunch break, I learned about the other trials happening simultaneously. 3 more families had come forward. Girls Mr. Rashid had approached at markets. Parents who'd refused his offers and faced his threats. The pattern was undeniable now. Back in court, Fatima took the stand. She'd saved the recording after all, hidden it in cloud storage before deleting the phone copy. Mr. Rashid's voice filled the courtroom, describing exactly what he'd do to disobedient wives. The judge's face hardened with each word. The defense tried to paint me as mentally unstable, using the forged medical documents. But the doctor who'd supposedly signed them testified he'd never met me. His signature had been copied from other paperwork. Another charge added to Mr. Rashid's growing list. Amara testified via video link from her own safe house. At 12 now, she spoke clearly about the night she'd picked my lock. about the beatings for teaching escape phrases, about watching me prepare for a wedding that would have culled me. Her testimony brought several jurors to tears. The prosecution presented financial records next. Mr. Rashid had taken life insurance policies on both previous wives, collected substantial payouts after their deaths, used that money to pursue new child brides. The monetary trail painted a picture of calculated predation. My teenage male cousin testified about offering his savings to stop the wedding. He'd worked construction for 3 years, saved every penny. His willingness to sacrifice everything for my freedom showed the jury how desperate our situation had been. Even Uncle testified, though reluctantly. Under oath, he admitted knowing about Mr. Rashid's reputation, admitted the family had prioritized bride price over safety. His shame was visible as he described ignoring warning signs for financial gain. The medical examiner who'd autopsied Mr. Rashid's first wife took the stand. She'd been 15, pregnant, with injuries consistent with sustained abuse. The cause of death wasn't pregnancy complications as claimed. The clinical details made several jurors look away. Sarah testified about our friendship, about noticing my absence from school. She'd convinced her mother to check on me, knowing something was wrong. Her simple act of concern had started the chain of events that saved 7 girls. The safe house coordinator presented statistics. 7 girls rescued that night, 12 more in the following months as word spread. Families questioning traditions they'd never challenged before. Change happening one saved child at a time. Grandmother returned to testify about the confrontation. She described hitting Mr. Rashid with her cane when he grabbed Amara, described choosing children over tradition for the first time in her life. Her voice cracked only once when she mentioned the jewelry worn by dead wives. The defense's case crumbled quickly. Character witnesses refused to appear. Business associates distanced themselves. Even Mr. Rashid's brothers wouldn't testify on his behalf. He sat alone at the defense table, finally facing consequences. During the final recess, I met with other survivors in a small room, girls who'd escaped similar situations. We didn't need to speak. The understanding in our eyes said everything. We were warriors in a battle most people couldn't imagine. Closing arguments focused on patterns. The prosecution showed how Mr. Rashid had operated for decades. Young wives who died mysteriously, insurance payouts, moving to new victims. A cycle that would have continued without intervention. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Aggravated assault, fraud, insurance fraud, conspiracy. The judge would sentence him next month, but the prosecutor assured me he'd never hurt another girl. As they led Mr. Rashid away, he looked at me once. No remorse in his eyes, only rage at being caught. I stared back steadily. I'd won. We'd won. The system had finally worked. Outside the courthouse, grandmother waited by a taxi. She pressed something into my hand. A small gold ring. Not from Mr. Rashid's collection, but her own wedding band. She wanted me to sell it. Use the money for education. Her way of making amends. The underground network had arranged everything. I lived with Sarah's family now, attending school regularly. My grades were excellent. Teachers wrote recommendation letters for scholarship applications. My English had improved dramatically. Amara lived 2 hours away with a foster family who understood her trauma. We texted daily, supporting each other through nightmares and difficult days. She was learning to trust adults again, slowly but steadily. 5 of the 7 girls who escaped that night had found stable homes. 2 had aged out and lived independently, working and attending night school. We maintained contact through encrypted apps, a sisterhood forged in fire. The lawyer connected me with advocacy groups. I spoke at safe houses sometimes, sharing my story with girls facing similar situations, not for fame or recognition, just quiet rooms where my words might save lives. My family had fractured completely after that night. Father faced his own legal troubles for conspiracy. Mother had divorced him, moved in with a sister who'd supported our escape. The patriarchal structure had collapsed, leaving confusion, but also possibility. Some aunts had started questioning other traditions. Arranged marriages still happened, but now with more scrutiny. Girls attended school longer. Voices of dissent were heard. Small changes, but changes nonetheless. Fatima messaged me occasionally. She was finishing high school, planning for university. Her father had kept his threat, refusing to pay tuition, but she'd found scholarships. My escape had shown her that defiance was possible. The male nurse invited me to dinner with his family monthly. His mother had become like an aunt to me, sharing stories of her daughter. Together, we kept her memory alive while working to prevent more tragedies. Mr. Rashid's sentencing arrived on a cold Tuesday. 25 years minimum. The judge cited the pattern of predation, the calculated nature of his crimes. He would die in prison, never touching another child. That night, I dreamed of Layla for the first time in months. In the dream, she had her hair again, long and beautiful. She was teaching girls to read in a bright classroom. I woke knowing that wherever she was, her lessons lived on in us. School counselors helped with college applications. My essay about survival and justice caught attention from admissions officers. Full scholarships arrived from 3 universities. I chose the one with the strongest pre-law program. Sarah and I remained close friends. She'd started volunteering at the safe house, using her social connections to help other girls integrate at school. Our shared experience had bonded us permanently. The safe house held a small graduation ceremony for girls who'd earned their diplomas while in residence. I gave a short speech about transformation, about choosing education over tradition, about building futures from ashes of the past. Some relatives tried reconnecting, sending messages about forgiveness and family unity. I deleted them unread. Forgiveness was mine to give or withhold, and I felt no obligation to those who'd nearly sold me to a predator. My scars had faded but never disappeared completely. Sometimes I traced them absently while studying. Physical reminders of how close I'd come to destruction. Battle marks that proved survival was possible. The women's network expanded quietly. Phone numbers passed in bathroom stalls. Safe houses in unexpected locations. Lawyers working pro bono. An underground railroad for girls fleeing forced marriages. I volunteered at legal clinics on weekends, translating for women who spoke our language, helping them understand their rights, showing them that the law could protect rather than oppress. Mr. Rashid's assets were liquidated in civil suits. Compensation went to his victims' families. Not enough to bring back the dead, but acknowledgement of harm done. Justice in monetary form. Local mosques had started premarital counseling programs. Imams spoke about consent and partnership. Slow cultural shifts happening in response to our story. Progress measured in protected childhoods. My 18th birthday approached with university acceptance letters piling up. I'd chosen law school as my path, not for wealth or prestige, but as a weapon against those who prey on children. The story of 7 girls who escaped had become legend in our community, whispered by mothers who wanted different futures for their daughters, shared by girls who needed hope. We'd become symbols without seeking it. I kept a photo of all 7 of us on my desk, taken at the safe house that first morning, exhausted but free. A reminder of what we'd survived and what we fought to prevent. Later Layla remained missing. Her relatives had hidden her well, but sometimes I received anonymous letters with legal advice for helping trapped girls, her handwriting, her knowledge. She was out there, still fighting in her own way. As I packed for university, I found the paper where I'd first written the shelter number, faded now, barely legible. I kept it as reminder of desperation transformed into determination. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility. Law school, bar exams, courtrooms where I'd fight for girls like us. A lifetime of work turning trauma into justice. I was ready. That final night at Sarah's house, I sat with her family at dinner. They'd become my real family, chosen through kindness rather than blood. We talked about normal things, classes, weather, weekend plans. Later, alone in my room, I opened acceptance letters again. Full scholarships to study law. Tools to dismantle systems that allowed child marriage. Education is revolution. Tomorrow I would leave for university. Tonight, I was 18 and free, surrounded by people who'd helped me survive. The war against child marriage continued, but I'd won my battle. I thought of the fire that night, wedding dresses burning in the courtyard. From those ashes had risen 7 futures, 7 girls who refused to disappear, 7 voices that would echo through generations. My phone buzzed with messages from the other 6. Pictures of graduations, job acceptances, normal teenage moments, lives saved and living fully. The greatest revenge against those who tried to steal our childhoods. I closed my eyes and made a final promise. Every case I'd take, every law I'd write, every girl I'd help escape, all for Layla and the ones who couldn't run. My scars had become my mission. The work would never end. Somewhere tonight, another 13-year-old was being told her blood made her ready for marriage. But also tonight, 7 survivors were planning futures, building networks, preparing to fight. Change happened slowly, one saved girl at a time, one family questioning tradition, one law protecting children. We were proof that cycles could break, that courage was contagious, that freedom was possible. I smiled, thinking of Mr. Rashid in his cell. 25 years to consider his choices. While he rotted, we bloomed. While he faced walls, we claimed the world. Justice served not with kitchen spoons, but with law books and determination.